Welcome to the Moms Making Dough podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt, and today's episode 53 is if you feel off in your money, start here. Totally a generalized topic in terms of I am at that point where with all my coaching clients and personally, it's end of quarter, right? Which I cannot even believe I'm saying that. I feel like it seems especially quick for me, especially this last month, because I've gone the roller coaster of extremes where it's like, it feels like really, really high, really, really low, really, really fast, really, really slow. So, primarily because today is 1 month exactly that my husband slipped on ice and broke his leg. And I guess as a mom, you don't really realize the little like added things that add up that take up like so much time that you just don't account for. So I am feeling the tiredness of just like extra laundry, extra breakfast, extra meals, extra pickups, extra rides now. I feel like I went from like having a toddler, which I do have, to a teenager, adding a teenager overnight where it's like, bring me for a ride for my haircut, bring me for all these things that I specifically don't mind doing, but they just add up. So if I'm looking a little bit run down, a little bit tired, there's a reason. Now you know what it is. But I wanted to jump back in because I've been working with a bunch of clients today, thinking about like what is presenting for me to talk about today. And I feel like this is a process that I continually go back to, not only for, like I said, myself, but with clients. And it's just like, what do I look at end of quarter? If it comes to my business, if it comes to my personal finances, what are the things that I'm looking at, or even your personal like goals, targets, I like to call them. So I want you to treat this as a mini coaching session. And just like any coaching session, you'll get out of it what you are willing to put into it. And so let's dive in. And back to the story about breaking the leg a little bit. I have used this time as such a interesting moment to reflect on what I call the 3Ds. What do I need to be doing like right now? What am I need to be deleting from doing, meaning don't stop doing it at all? And then what are the things that I need to be delegating? And I'll give you a very simple example. One was we have a chef that cooks mostly. Her name's Jamie. She's amazing, for Ryan. And the minute he broke his leg, I messaged her and I was like, Jamie, I need you to make me meals. Because I looked very, very quickly at like, what are some of the things that are going to just like going to make the wheels fall off the bus, things that I could get ahead of before they become hard. And one of the things that I thought of right away that I'm really committed to is just making sure that I stay on track with my eating, meaning I'm eating enough, I'm eating enough protein, I'm eating all these things that as we get older, we have to pay way more attention to that we didn't have to pay attention to so much when we were younger, because our bodies were more forgiving, right? So I started to really think about that. So she was one of my first phone calls, and it brought me into this sequence of thought process where I was like, oh my God, I need to just kind of take some time to think about like ahead of the game. Where are some things that are going to feel crunched, and when I add more tasks and to-dos, it's going to require me to be more diligent in how I attack some of these things, meaning I might have to delete some things. I might have to delegate some things. And I also am very clear on the things that I specifically need to do that not other people can do as easily for me. Things like my CEO hat, things like making big decisions about some of the things that we need to change in our businesses, some of the things that we need to put a hold on in our businesses, some of the things that we need to move forward with. And one of the most amazing things is If you listen to my couple episodes ago, I talked about how we had just came back from the scaling workshop, Alex Hormozzi's scaling workshop in Vegas, prior to this leg breaking, which is, like I said, 30 days away, 4 weeks ago today. And we had come back with this very elaborate plan, and I shouldn't say elaborate. It was very specific, and I felt really excited and grounded in what that plan was. And I feel like I think Mike Tyson says this. He goes, everything goes well until you get punched in the face, right? And most people would look at, like, especially since my husband has a physical job, he's a chiropractor, man, like, that's a punch in the face. And how are you going to deal with that, right? And I chose to see the whole picture, the things that would possibly break, the things that would challenge me, the things that would be opportunities for us, and the things that also would be the positives in it. And I find that it's so easy to, like, go down one path or the other. And they definitely ebb and flow. Like, there's times where I'm like, this sucks. And then it's not all unicorns and rainbows. But then there's also times where I've had immense pride of what we have built. And one of the things that's been really awesome in our practice is we have a really kick-ass team that has continued operations and even grown this month without either one of us being present. Now, I physically am not present in our practice and have not been since I've had my daughter. But one of the things that was the most amazing part was when Ryan first broke his leg, I was able to go into our office and lead, like, our team. And many of the team that we have did not currently work for us when I was, like, stepping out of my day-to-day operations, having Lily. And it was really cool, I said, that not only the amount of respect that they gave me, but they clearly saw that, like, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just behind the scenes, not knowing what's going on. And it felt very rewarding, because if this happened to us, a situation like this happened in our business just a couple years ago, I would say, probably even 2 or 3 years ago, I think we would be and have been in a drastically different outlook. And it would have impacted our marriage, our parenting, our businesses, not just our patients, and ultimately even my extended family. And I want you to really just think about one of the main things from the scaling workshop. One of the questions that I have talked about in the past that really brought me to is, like, if you go away on vacation, what breaks? And now I turned it into be a little bit funny with it, of like, hey, if you actually break, what breaks, right? And it's given us this opportunity to kind of work through some of these things that we don't typically have the time to work on specifically together. But that also brought me to today of looking at, we are in the last week of Q1, which is so freaking scary to say, because I feel, like I said, it's been a roller coaster of really, really highs, really, really lows, really fast at times, and then really slow at times. And I feel like that's like a general metaphor for how you can feel in life on any given day. But I wanted to share this process again. It's something that I have always typically talked about at the end of quarter, because I get a lot of joy out of doing this with clients. And I hope you will apply this to your business, but also your personal finances, which I do both, because I have since, like, been working on refining and simplifying the process. And this can, like I said, work for any category. It can work for your business. It can work for your personal finances. It can work for looking at how you're spending your time. It can look on how you're spending your energy. It can work for how you're approaching your health. It can work on how you're looking at your marriage. It can look at how you're being a parent. All of these, like, this cascades this one framework I'm about to teach you. So the first step in this framework is review. And if you have been a longtime listener of mine, you know I love alliteration. And alliteration is, the repeat of the letters, right? So I have 3 R's for you today. And that R is review. The first one is going to be review. And review is what I like to say is, like, this is where all your clarity begins. because this is where you stop guessing and you start getting and collecting some real data that's going to give you an accurate picture of where you currently are. Um, I will be honest, there is a lot of skill to this because a lot of people, once they start this process, sometimes they're seeing things that they don't want to see. But that's only when we start to see it is when we become aware of it is when we can start to change and shift it. So, um, in business, what does this look like? Where am I in terms of like, what is your revenue? What are the offers you're putting out there? How many new clients have you brought in? What is your overhead? Like things like hard numbers like this that are giving us data. Now, this is way beyond a P&L. When you're doing this part of the exercise. And I get this question a lot, especially when I work with people like at the very beginning, is like, oh, my P&L tells me that. No, your P&L tells you what you brought in terms of what you had for sales, and it tells you what you spent that is tax deductible. Like in a nutshell, that's what a P&L is. It does not tell you an accurate depiction of what you took home. It does not tell you an accurate depiction of all these other expenses that maybe you wrote through your business as an expense. It does not tell you how much you have in your bank account. It does not always align. Especially if you have multiple bank accounts and you are working specific methods of growing your cash flow, growing your vault account, saving for taxes, putting money aside for payroll every week. All of these things, these factors that can come in, they are not portrayed on a P&L accurately, in my opinion, even though it's really important to have, and it is what most business owners go off of. But if I had a dime for every business owner I work with that is like, hey, my P&L says I made $10,000, but I don't know where that is, I'd probably be even like wealthier. So in personal finance, it's going to look at collecting data of like, hey, what did I bring in? In most likely, it's like, what did I bring in after taxes? What am I spending? What am I putting aside in savings? What type of savings? What am I putting into investments like 401ks, or maybe it's real estate, or maybe it's crypto for some people, whatever it is, your vehicle of investment. Maybe it's nothing. So like being really real and raw with yourself of like, what are some of these data points you have that can start giving you more information, that is truthful of where you currently are at. And then the second R is going to be in this process is going to be reflect. And this is where you join those facts and you add what we call the feelings to equal your awareness. This is the part that most people skip because, especially when it comes to business, even personal finance, it is so easy to get stuck here because it's like you don't want to get overwhelmed and consumed by the feelings. But also, if you get too factual and you're too strategic and you're tactical all the time, you start to get out of alignment. And this is where you want to figure out like what worked, what didn't. And most of all, how do you feel about it? Because I like to say is that like the review is the facts in terms of the factual data. The reflect is much more a depiction of like why are those your current facts? Like what is the emotional driver behind it? And your facts plus your feelings will ultimately equal your focus. So if you have shame, guilt, anger, frustration, all these negative type emotions attached to making money, or, how you spent your money this month, in both your business and or your personal life, you're going to start to stay in a contracted mode instead of in an aligned frame of mind. All facts, no emotion literally means you are disconnected. All emotion, no facts means you typically are overwhelmed, so you just don't do anything. Most people, this is what puts them into that avoidant category where they just rather not look at it, like they just don't want to know. And for example, a really good example would be like you might have made a lot of money. You might have had your best months ever. But like, how did you feel making it? Is it one of those things where it's like, holy shit, delivering that whatever I sold is burning me the fuck out? Maybe it's you feel like you sold all these programs, but you're chasing clients to get all the things. This is a really common thing. I have a couple of accounting and tax strategy clients. This is really common is like you feel like you're chasing people to get them the shit that you need from them to do. Maybe you felt really out of alignment, like, hey, I did a quick hit program, but now I have to fulfill on it and I'm not really feeling excited about it, which is showing you that that is not alignment with not only with yourself, but with your brand, which is also going to lead to short-term gains, not long-term plans. So, because if the money is there, but your energy is off, the success, that's not success, in my opinion. That's a signal that something is askew and needs some, not only the reflection, but the next step, which is going to be refinement, right? Where small shifts can make big changes. So, like, this is the three-step process. We're going to review where I'm at, look at the facts. We're going to reflect and be honest with the feelings about those facts. And then we're going to refine, which is we're going to start to make tweaks so we can start to see things shift in a different direction. And ironically, this is the part that people tend to skip the most, the refinement. They review, they reflect, and they stop here because it's often too hard to go on. And it's the best place for intentional adjustments, right? So I went to school to be a pilot. I always say this example here when I'm working with a client is like, one of my favorite sayings is that like you are constantly correcting for deviations from weather, deviations from air traffic control, deviations from your magnetic compass, right? You're off course, we like to say 90% of the time, right? So you're constantly correcting, right? And small shifts can change the direction that you're headed. Or put you back on course. But if you get massively off course, it gets that much harder for you to actually get back on track. Same applies to your business, same applies to your finances. So I want you to really think about not doing massive overhauls, but small steps. I was working with someone today and we kind of called it skipping stones, right? Like if you're on one stone, like can you skip to a small step, but not a smaller stone, but not like try to like literally hurdle over a bunch of stones that are, like to a bigger one, right? It's like, can you pick small steps that close small gaps? And I really like to say this too, is that like, the typical approach too is that like people are like, let's scrap it, or let's just start over, or let's throw the baby out with the bathwater, whatever, however it is you verbalize it, right? But small aligned shifts are what really make the difference done consistently over time. And let me give you some examples of what this might look like. Maybe in your business, it might be simplifying your offers. Again, this is a huge one I see a lot of people make a mistake on. I am definitely guilty of myself. Is it's so easy to just like switch your offer now these days, especially with all the tools and technology, AI we can use now to do so. But some of the most successful entrepreneurs I know, men and women, usually have a couple core offers. Some of them, I know that they have one offer that they have repeatedly sold over time. That's their kind of bread and butter. Yes, they do have upsells. They do have, like a lower entry level product, usually typically of some sort, but they really know what is their best offer and they might simplify it, or better yet, they might refine it, but it's still the same offer because they know it freaking works. It is so easy to start adding new things when you haven't got the full thing, the full magnitude of what that offer is to really a ninja level, right? And then the next thing, clean up your schedule. Maybe this means like in business, you are literally like you are so overscheduled that you never have any time to work on the business. Maybe this is a point of refinement that needs to happen where you block off one day where you don't do any client interactions. You instead do cleanup and follow up and business building activities and identify what those look like. Small shifts that create big change, right? Maybe it's you need to strengthen your systems in your business. Maybe your business, this is a great example in our practice right now. Like one of the things that we took advantage of is because we're not there so much is we are working on things like changing over our phone system, implementing an AI messaging service to what already is like mostly like people don't pick up the phone anymore unless they're a new patient. Now our existing patients are it's mostly done via text, right? But we took it as an opportunity as like, hey, let's upgrade this system that we now have time to make sure we implement correctly. Because when we're at volume and when we're really seeing patients, it's really hard to make shifts like that on a simple basis. Same thing in our other business is like, what are some of the systems that we need to do? One of the things we looked at in refinement on one of our other businesses was like, we have to look at some of our pricing because we know that there's better competitors out there that are offering better pricing on some of the things that we are offering in that business. So we needed to start looking at some of those relationships. Maybe it's relationships that you need to strengthen or build upon. And then let's talk about personal life. What are some things like areas of refinement I would look at in your personal life? And when I say personal life, I mean really more your personal finances. So what are some of the things that maybe you need to cut? Now, again, we're in a place where like Ryan's hurt. And my first thing that I went to, which is more of a scarcity mindset, but not something that like, if I'm being honest with all of you, which is that's what I want to do. It's so easy to go right to what do we need to cut? But instead, can you change that wording to what do we need to adjust? Like maybe we're spending like in an area that just we're spending too much in. I'm looking at a lot of this like kind of like house expenses. So I started even looking at like some of the things like, oh, like that nut's getting a little bit higher than I like it. And is all this stuff I need right now? Can I clean it up? Can I negotiate? Are there things that like I actually don't need in this season, right? Especially like if you live in Massachusetts, like one of the things is like energy costs. I would say across the country that's a problem, but like our gas bills for our businesses, our physical business and our house this year, I'm like, they are through the roof. And they have increased so much and I don't have any influence over that. So I can't, in terms of the cost of the gas, but I do have influence of like, hey, making sure we turn off thermostats, making sure we turn them down when we're not here. Little small steps that over time will add up to big changes. Maybe and that's like an adjustment, not a cut. I'm not going to cut our gas, but I'm going to adjust some of these expenses. And maybe that's not the direct expense. Maybe it's just my approach to like at my questioning. Do I need this? Looking through my phone and looking at apps. Do I need these apps? And the craziest thing is when you start dropping apps, what's so interesting is I had one of these today. They're like, we miss you. Come back. And I was like, literally, it was an app I think I paid $80 a year for. And I was like, oh man, I'm not using this one. Clean this one up. Close it out. And then they offer for you to come back at $20 instead of the $80. I'm like, why don't you just do that in the first place? It does make no sense. But it's part of their strategy, so that's fine. But just like thinking about things that like you can just adjust, not cut. Which keeps you in abundance versus cut puts you back in, like I said, that scarcity mindset. What else could you automate? Like, what are things that you could automate? And I'm going to say a personal life one that you guys are going to think is pretty funny, but all of you who are listening are mostly moms, so you'll get this. I was on a call with a woman, very successful woman, and she was talking about automating your household. And it was a webinar. And it was really, really good. And one of the things that she had us do was write a list of like the tasks we hate doing, but we still do. And my first one I put on there was laundry. Now, this is very ironic, but um, I have a babysitter who sometimes comes a little bit early and she loves to do laundry. So I usually will have her do a load. She only comes one day a week for me. And so I was like, oh, I can ask Sylvia to help me. She was more than willing to do it. And then, but I'm like, I can't get away because now I'm having to do Ryan's laundry with one day a week of laundry. Like, just doesn't happen. Right. Most of us moms can totally relate to this. So I was like, all right, now I'm like on every other day doing a couple loads of laundry. And I'm like, man, I actually don't really mind the physical act, but where I suck at it is where I do the laundry, but then I don't fold it for like a couple hours, sometimes a couple days, if I'm being honest. And Sylvia only comes on Thursdays. So I was like, man, and I found out literally less than a minute from my house, there is a wash and fold laundry place. And so I'd never noticed this place before, but I Googled it. Like, is there a place that like does your laundry? And so I dropped off my first load of laundry today, after a month to be done. I'll let you know what the feedback is, but it made me think about like, what are some of the things that I still do that I don't need to be doing that I could automate because I would free me up to do something else that's way more valuable. Like to me, even this, hour of power of creativity of doing my podcast is such a much more energizing to me than going downstairs and folding that bucket of laundry that I'm probably going to have to re-dry because it's wrinkled now. So just really thinking on that level. Or maybe it's creating a monthly or weekly money date. A lot of you have heard me talk about this because I do talk about it a lot, is like, I call it my financial Fridays, where I take an hour for my personal and an hour for our businesses. It's usually a 9 to 12 block on my schedule where I just go through. I don't do any tasks in that moment. I just go through and I look at like, what did we spend this week? What do we need to tighten up? What are things that are expenses coming down the pike for both, like I said, business and personal finances? And I give myself this gift of peace of mind. Now, let me tell you this though. There are weeks that money is messy and it does not feel like it's peace of mind in any way, shape, or form. So I want you to just really start to think about that tie-in of, like, could you set a money date even if it's messy? Maybe just to get yourself in the habit of giving your money some attention, because here's what I find. Money is like people. It starts to grow the more attention you give it, especially when you give it loving attention. So that is like a huge thing that I really just think about when I think about refining, is like, what are those shifts I can make that are small, but will create big change, what I call compound change over time. And I like to, I've been saying this a lot lately too, is that like the messy middle isn't where things like fall apart all the time. It's where you find magic in the mundane until it compounds into a positive, right? It's like, typically, like I said, it feels boring. It feels mundane. It feels like I said, messy. But what starts to happen is that mess slowly starts to get cleaned up a little bit of it at a time. It doesn't come from one fell swoop. And like, I think about this like all the time. It's like when you're like, if you've ever been in a hoarder's house, right? And it's like one fell swoop is get a dumpster, put it out front and put all the shit in it, right? Like, but it's like, what if you broke down projects where like you did a room at a time or a closet at a time and that sort of thing? I'm doing this more with my house right now. Even my same friend that taught the webinar on like refining your running your home like a CEO, right? And it's so funny because it's like her whole concept is running your home like a CEO. How you automate it, and she's a CEO of a company too. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a great concept, because the things that challenge you in your personal life are going to also challenge you in your business. So this is a process that will help you create a rhythm, right? Reviewing is step one. Reflecting, what are those facts in the review? How do I feel about them in the reflect? And then refine is going to be, what are the steps I'm going to take next to help start making a shift? What you'll find that if you review, you reflect, and you refine, and you make this a continual process, instead of feeling overwhelmed, instead of feeling stuck, like you're spinning plates, like you're in quicksand, wondering why things aren't changing, what you're going to start to see is where you have possibility, where you have capability, where you have ability to change. And you might not see it clearly yet, but eventually you will start to see what that looks like. If you review what's real, reflect on how it feels, and you refine what ultimately is not aligned so you can start to do so. You don't need a brand new plan every quarter. You probably don't need to hire a coach, like if I'm being honest. You need a better process and more consistency in doing that process. And when you start with moving with this kind of intention, here's what you're going to see. Everything is going to start to shift to the better. And then that shift is going to create momentum with your time, with your energy, and with your money. So I hope you have found this process helpful. If you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please share it with someone you know. And I would love, love, love to hear your feedback. Either DM me and or what I would love, if you're feeling extra generous, is if you could rate, review, and even subscribe so you can get back to and listen to all the episodes of Moms Making Dough. And I will see you next time on the next episode. Thanks for listening.